Dad laughed when I gave him his dream car on Thanksgiving, saying I was trying to buy his approval. That night, I took it back, cutting him off. I severed off communication with my father a few years ago after one big public I used to believe that family meant catastrophe that ruined everything for me. Unwavering commitment, regardless of how much respect you lost in the process. It turns out that some people consider family as just another word for ownership. Anyway, this story is not about vengeance or hatred. It's about what finally led me to walk away, and how I discovered that peace speaks louder than words. People believe that line work is all about climbing poles and mending wires. It is not. It's about keeping the power on when everyone else is home, warm and cozy. Thunderstorms, blackouts and lightning. We are the ones out there. That is what I do. And yes, it is risky. It's hard, but I enjoy it. I've been doing it for about 12 years, and every time I see the lights come back on after a long power outage, I feel like I've actually created something worthwhile. However, my father didn't see it that way. He used to joke that I used big boy Legos. He'd say, "Real success wears a tie, Michael." He sipped his dark coffee as if he were imparting life lessons. He's a retired accountant who still reads the Wall Street Journal in print and believes that a man's worth is determined by the number of meetings he participates in. My sister, Lily. Yes, she's the favorite. She has an online fitness account, publishes gym photos with encouraging captions like "rise and grind," and her father treats her as if she discovered fire. He describes her as a true entrepreneur. Sure, Dad. Posting squats for brand deals is clearly Wall Street level stuff. 2 years ago, after yet another, "When are you going to get a real job?" lecture I promised myself. I was done trying to explain my career. I would show him instead. When I wanted to quit, I remembered his voice. "You'll burn out before you ever get ahead." And the plan came to me one night when I noticed an old listing online. A 1972 Mustang Fastback. His dream car since I was a child. He talked about it as if it were his first passion. He'd say, "cherry red manual with black stripes." However, he never came close to buying one. Too pricey and impractical. I found one that required restoring and made it my side hobby for a year. Parts, paint, and late hours at my friend's garage. Each bolt was tightened by hand. It was perfect. Thanksgiving morning came faster than I expected. I parked the automobile outside my parents' house, covered in a tarp and a red bow. The house was full. Cousins, neighbors, and Lily are already live streaming her arrival as if it were a red carpet event. I carried myself in the same way I always had. Calm, laid back, and no big show. Dad was taking court in the living room, gloating about how Lily had been invited to a wellness expo. I waited for a lull before saying, "Hey Dad, come outside for a second." Everyone followed. He saw the car, froze, and glanced at me. "Is this a joke?" he inquired. "Nope," I replied. "It's yours. Merry Thanksgiving." He cautiously walked around it, touching the door and inspecting the paint. "A 72 Fastback," he stated slowly, almost as if he didn't believe it. For 1 second, I thought I actually did it. That maybe finally he'd be proud. Then he turned to the crowd, smirked, and said, "Guess my boy's trying to buy my approval." I didn't believe climbing poles paid this well. The laughs hit me harder than I anticipated. They laughed out loud, as if it were the funniest thing they'd ever heard. Lily giggled like a toddler. Someone's uncle applauded, and my father simply stood there, grinning, the star of his own little comic hour. I smiled too. Not because it was humorous, but because I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of seeing me angry. I merely answered, "Yeah, I've got to keep the lights on somehow," and walked back inside. The remainder of the night was a whirl of phony happiness. Lily posed near the tree. Dad boasted about his joke, while I sat quietly in the rear, checking the time every few minutes. When dessert came out, I stood up and announced that I had an early shift the next morning. He laughed again. "Of course we can't keep the city running without you, huh?" Outside it was chilly enough that I could see my breath. I stood next to my truck watching the lights in the home flicker through the curtains. The Mustang sat in the driveway, pristine and sparkling, as if it did not belong there. I desired that moment, the respect, the nod, something. But deep inside, I knew better. I didn't feel sorry as I drove home. Just finished. Years of remarks, eye rolls and jokes culminated in one thing. No matter what I accomplished, it would never be enough for him. He'd never think of me as anything more than a misguided youth. I stopped in my driveway, sat down and stared at my hands. The same hands that repaired electricity lines during storms and rebuilt that car from rust were strangely inadequate. Then I laughed, not bitter, but exhausted. "Happy Thanksgiving, old man," I mumbled. Because that was the moment it hit me. I didn't need him to be proud. I'd already made it. He just couldn't stand the fact that I did it without his permission. That statement kept running through my mind as I washed my teeth the next morning. I could still hear his idiotic laugh from last night. The, "Guess my boy's trying to buy my approval" line repeated over and over, like an awful music I couldn't turn off. Then it struck me. The title and registration were still in my name. I stood in the kitchen, sipping cold coffee and looking out the window like a man prepared to do something dumb yet serene. I wasn't mad anymore, just finished. That automobile did not belong there. Not in that driveway, not with him. By 7 a.m., I had taken an Uber back. The neighborhood appeared frozen. Thanksgiving lights remained on, lawns froze over, and a few garbage cans tipped over from the wind. I dropped off a block away and walked the rest of the way as if I were on a secret errand. The Mustang sat there, sparkling beneath a thin covering of ice. The red bow drooped from the dew, as if embarrassed to be still there. I unlocked the door, got into the driver's seat, and nearly laughed. I still held the key. The key turned smoothly. I rolled it slowly out of the driveway, careful not to wake anyone. The reflection of the porch lights followed me down the street, as if the car had finally left the wrong house. When I returned home, I parked the car in my garage, switched off the engine, and sat with my hands on the steering wheel. For the first time in days, I felt tranquil, as if I'd simply unplugged something that had been draining me for many years. I took a long shower, ate breakfast and placed my phone face down. I did not even check it until midday. By then, it appeared that my notifications had multiplied in the dark. 18 missed calls, 10 messages, and 4 voicemails. Lily's message came up first. "Did you seriously take back Dad's present? You're ruining Thanksgiving. Everyone is talking about it. Grow up." Right underneath that, one from my father. People laughed because it was funny. "Learn to take a joke." Then another a few minutes later. "You're embarrassing yourself now. No thanks. Number. Why did you take it back?" Just pure entitlement, as if the car were his birthright. I put down my phone and went into the garage. The Mustang glittered in the light, its engine still fresh from the earlier trip. I strolled around it slowly, hands in my pockets. I recalled every time he had mentioned my employment. Blue-collar muscle kid who works with tools because he can't do math. Perhaps if you studied harder, you wouldn't have to hang from poles for a career. He stated everything as if it were useful counsel, as if tearing me down was his form of drive. I used to laugh it off, telling myself that he just didn't get what I did. But deep down, I believe he did. He just resented the fact that I didn't need his permission to be proud of it. I wiped my hands with a cloth and opened my laptop, which displayed a historic automobile listing site. 1972 Mustang Fastback, refurbished with original V8 engine and fresh paint. I snapped a few pictures directly in the garage. Front angle, engine bay, and interior. I posted it with a little note. Only serious buyers will be considered. Title in hand. I was not keeping anything that reminded me of him. It didn't feel like my job anymore. It was a monument to a man who would never say "good job" without making a jab. I wanted to sell it so I could treat myself to something unrelated to him. Around 2 p.m., my phone vibrated again. Another voicemail. I put it on speaker while tightening a light fixture in the kitchen. "Michael, what the hell is wrong with you?" He said it with a weak voice and an expression of feigned rage. "You took the automobile back. Do you think that makes you look strong? People witnessed you doing that. You have embarrassed me. You have shamed this family. You think you can just return a present like a spoiled child?" I laughed aloud. The kid was spoiled. From a man who spent Thanksgiving morning frying his son for sport. I texted him back 3 words. Titles with my name. He did not respond after that, but Lily did. Of course she did. "You are acting insane. Dad's quite upset. He didn't intend anything with the joke. Why can't you let things go?" Because I had been letting things go for 30 years. That's why. Every insult, every jab, veiled as harmless banter. You don't realize how much you've consumed until you've stopped. That evening, I stood in the garage again, gazing at the automobile. Someone had already contacted me about it, offering to come over and see it that weekend. I accepted. When I turned off the garage lights, I caught sight of myself in the side mirror. I looked different. Not in a dramatic movie style, but rather steadier and crisper. That night, while lying in bed, I came to a simple realization. I'd spent years trying to prove to him that I had made it. But I didn't have to prove it anymore. The guy who thought success required a tie and a title might retain his empty house and false pride. I had calm and a car for sale. That weekend, a buyer stopped by. The older guy, presumably in his late 40s, recognized what he was looking at. He did not even haggle. I simply walked around the Mustang, nodded once and said, "Someone really took their time with this." "Yeah," I replied, handing him the keys. "Someone did." By Monday morning, the automobile had disappeared. The garage was empty, and I felt lighter. I assumed my father would blow up again once he saw it was posted online, so I severed the cord for real before he could start his next meltdown. I grabbed my phone and searched through my contacts until I found Rachel, his wife, and my stepmother. She's the only one in that house who has ever treated me like a real human being. She didn't always take sides, but she never pretended the person was easy to get along with. My text was brief, perhaps 4 lines. "Hello Rachel. I just wanted to let you know that I'm taking a break back from everything. I'm done with family vacations, repairing things, and attempting to make peace when it's one-sided. I wish you the best." Before pushing submit, I took a second to stare at the screen. No essays, no explanations, just the reality. Her reply arrived 10 minutes later. "You've done enough, Michael. Do not feel guilty. You deserve to be at ease." Simple and honest. Probably the best thing anyone on that side of the family has ever said to me. After that, I figured I'd get ahead of the pack. My mother lived in Arizona, remarried, divorced, and currently teaches sewing classes out of her garage. We occasionally discuss about little issues such as the weather, job, and so forth. But this time, I called her legitimately. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey stranger," she said. "Hey mom. I did something." I said, "That sounds like something you usually say before bad news," she joked. I told her about the Thanksgiving mess, the Mustang, the joke, everything. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, there was silence. Then she said, Good. I asked. "That's not the part where you tell me to make peace." She laughed softly. "Michael, I was wondering when you'd finally stop trying to fix him. It's about time." That threw me off. My mother isn't the emotional type, never has been, but she sounded calm, even relieved. Then she said something I didn't expect. "You know why I left him, right?" she asked. "I figured it was the arguing," I said. She sighed. "It was the control." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the wall, imagining him saying it in the same smug tone he used when he told me climbing poles wasn't a real job. I used to sell my work at fairs, but he told me it wasn't respectable enough for an accountant's wife. She went on to say, "He does not love people, Michael. He audits them. Their worth is measured similarly to balance sheets. You could give him the entire globe, and he'd still find an error somewhere." That sentence resonated with me. He audits people. And that's precisely what he did. Every interaction was a calculation of how much he could critique and how much power he still had. I told her, "I guess I finally grew weary of being one of his lousy investments." She laughed. "You're the only one that actually paid off. He just doesn't like the return coming in without his name on it." We spoke for another hour, and she sounded cheerful and free, which I hadn't heard in years. When we hung up, I realized she wasn't surprised at all. She had been silently waiting for this moment, hoping I'd find it out. After that call, I remained on the couch for a bit, scrolling through old texts between my father and Lily, messages that looked normal until you read them, little digs disguised as conversation. Dad once asked me, "Any chance you'll advance to management, or are you more of a hands-on forever type?" It all read like the same script, me proving them minimizing. I was weary of it. So I did what I should have done years ago. I opened my contacts, blocked both of their numbers, and then navigated through social media, deleting them from every platform. There was no announcement, no post about cutting off toxicity, no attention-seeking things, just quiet deletion. My phone buzzed once, an unknown number. Most likely my father using a separate phone to get across the block, and I didn't respond. Instead, I just watched it ring and stop. Later, I sat out on the porch with a cold soda, scrolling through a few job listings in Arizona just for curiosity. Not because I needed to move, but because I could, because I didn't owe anyone an explanation anymore. It was strange how light everything felt, as if my life had been filled with background noise for so long that I forgot what quiet sounded like. Before heading in, I sent one last text to Rachel, not my father. "Just so you know, I blocked him and Lily. I'm done. I appreciate you always being decent." She responded a minute later. "I understand. You're doing the right thing." I smiled, put the phone down and locked the door. For the first time in years there was no weight sitting on my chest. Walking away isn't disrespect. It's self-respect. I should have known my father wouldn't let that be the last of it. About a week after blocking him, I was at work climbing down from a transformer pole when I noticed a text from a coworker, Nate. "Bro, everything good with you?" I responded back. He supplied a screenshot of an email chain between him, another lineman, and our foreman. The email was from my father, and the subject line was, "Concern for my kid." He wrote, "Michael has been acting erratic recently. He has alienated himself from his family, made unpredictable financial decisions, and may be struggling mentally. I'm concerned he'll do something reckless. Please keep an eye on him." My jaw clenched so hard I feared my teeth might break. I could almost hear his tone, calm, sympathetic, and carefully constructed to make me appear like a problem. I contacted Nate. "You didn't believe that garbage, right?" "Of course not, man," he said. "But buddy, that is messed up. Who does this to their own child?" "Someone who treats people like projects," I mumbled. By the end of the day, 2 more co-workers messaged me, and the tale was the same. My father had contacted people he didn't even know personally. Managers, union reps, anyone connected to me, all under the banner of concern. It wasn't concern, it was sabotage. The old man didn't like that I stopped playing by his script, so he decided to write a new one, starring me as the unstable son. So I called my friend Mark, one of the union lawyers I'd worked with during a safety dispute years ago. Guy's sharp, no nonsense. He took a piece of something crunchy and asked, "What's up, Michael?" I recounted everything. The emails, the stories, the bogus concern. He didn't even sound surprised. "Classic image management," he said. "He's developing a story, so if you ever call him out publicly, people believe you're the crazy one." "Can I shut it down?" I asked. "Oh sure, do you want me to handle it?" "Please." Within an hour he emailed me a brief, professional, and lethal draft of an official cease and desist letter written to my father, citing defamation and harassment and telling him 48 hours to stop contacting anyone linked with me. I approved it right away, and 2 days later, Mark texted me a screenshot of the delivery confirmation. I expected silence, but instead I got a storm. That afternoon my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize and I let it go to voicemail. When I listened later, it was my father's voice, shaky, theatrical and full of forced outrage. "Is this how you treat your father? You send attorneys after the family? Do you think that makes you a man? Michael, you've embarrassed me again. Do you really care what this does to our name? Our name?" Like he was running a corporation, not a family. I deleted it without replying. Not even worth my breath. The next day Lily called from her other phone. I didn't pick up. She texted instead. "Dad thinks you sent legal threats. What is wrong with you? He's heartbroken. You're being cruel." I replied back, "Tell him to stop contacting my coworkers, and I'll stop defending myself." She saw it, but didn't respond. Typical Lily. Defend him first. Think later. For over a week, everything was quiet. Then one day around lunch, I opened Facebook and nearly spit up my sandwich. There it was. A photo of my father lying in a hospital bed wearing one of those patient gowns, an oxygen tube under his nose, with the message, "Stress can really hurt the heart when your own blood turns on you. Appreciate your family while you still can." I just stared at it, speechless. Within minutes the post was inundated with comments. Old family, friends, churchgoers, and accounting co-workers rushed in to offer their condolences. "Stay strong, Mr. Thompson. You've raised a good son. He will come around. Kids today don't understand loyalty." Lily, of course, responded with a heart emoji and, "I love you, Dad." It was like watching a live performance of the Martyr Chronicles with Dad as the victim. I didn't comment, message, or defend myself. I just closed the app and went back to work. But that night, I couldn't stop thinking about how he'd pulled it off so easily. He wasn't even sick, just bored and hungry for attention, and I knew him too well. The next morning, my foreman Tom approached me in the yard and said, "Hey, just checking in. Is everything okay with you?" I smirked. "Let me guess. Did you see Facebook?" He nodded awkwardly. "Yeah." I didn't know what to believe, so I decided to ask straight up. "I'm alright," I replied. "He's not. He's just addicted to pretending he is." Tom chuckled and shook his head. "Family, right?" "Something like that," I responded. After work I went home and sat in my truck for a minute before heading inside. The sky was dismal and calm, and it dawned on me that he didn't want peace. He wanted an audience. Every move he made was about control. about bending reality to make him appear noble. And I looked broken. He wasn't sick, just addicted to control, and I wondered if cutting him off had been too harsh. I used to second-guess myself all the time, but not anymore. One afternoon, while fixing a breaker in my garage, I received a call from a storm response company in Arizona. It was a big job, 3-month contract, good pay. They needed line workers to help rebuild infrastructure after monsoon damage. I didn't even hesitate. The universe had given me a reason to leave. That same night, I put my apartment up for rent, cleaned out the garage, and boxed up the few things I actually cared about. My tools, some photos, and a worn leather jacket my mother had given me years ago. Everything else could stay. I wasn't fleeing. I was just tired of standing still. By the following month, I was in Arizona, where my mother lived in a single-story house surrounded by dry hills and cactus fields. When I pulled into her driveway, she came out wiping her hands on a sewing apron, smiling. "You're really here," she said. "Yeah," I responded, thinking I'd see what peace looked like. She hugged me quickly, as if she didn't know how to do it anymore, and motioned toward the house. "I made lasagna. Don't ask if it's healthy." The first week seemed unusual, with no work-related emergencies or caustic texts from Lily. There was no tension in the background, just open sky, long drives, and tranquil nights. I moved into a little home near my mother's, nothing extravagant, with a single bedroom, a small yard, and a view of power lines crossing through the desert horizon, which was fitting. My days were spent working on the storm contract. Weekends were slower, and I'd help neighbors fix porch lights, patch fences, and do other small jobs. It was hard work, long hours, and the kind of job that made you fall asleep the moment you sat down. But I loved it because it felt honest. Every bolt I tightened, every line I reset reminded me that I had built my own life, with no help from anyone. So people would come by with tiny projects and coffee as payment, which I didn't mind because it was pleasant labor with no drama or expectations. Then one Thursday night, I received a text from Rachel, whom I hadn't heard from in months. "Hey Michael, just a heads up. Your father tried to use the old emergency credit card you gave him years ago. It got declined." I froze mid-bite. I'd completely forgotten that card existed. It was something I'd set up years ago when he had surgery. I texted back, "How do you know?" He returned home upset, saying the card had been refused 3 times in one day for groceries, petrol, and something at Home Depot. I checked my account that night to confirm, and the activity log showed all 3 failed attempts. The next morning, I called the bank and canceled the card, then asked them to close the entire account so there were no leftovers. The rep asked if I wanted a replacement. "No," I said. "I'm done lending out lifelines." It felt symbolic, ending that one last connection. That card had been a silent chain, one he could pull on whenever he wanted. Later that night, I told my mother about it at dinner, and she didn't seem surprised. "He never wanted help," she said, setting down her fork. "He wanted control." There's a distinction. She was correct. He didn't miss me. He missed access. Every favor, card and phone call had always been about convenience, not concern. A week later, Rachel sent another text, this time short. "He's unhappy you canceled it. Said, you're punishing him." I told him, "It's your right." He didn't like that, and I grinned when I read it, not out of malice, but out of humor. The man honestly believed that cutting him off financially was a moral violation. That night, I sat on my porch with the desert wind blowing through, the stars were bright, the air was quiet, and for once, my mind wasn't replaying old arguments or unfinished sentences. I just sat there watching the power lines stretch across the horizon like silver threads. The same lines I used to climb for a living. There was something poetic about it, I suppose. The same thing he mocked me for had become the very thing that gave me freedom. I thought about all the years I'd spent trying to fix things. Broken conversations, old resentments, relationships that were never going to work. All for what? To keep the peace for people who didn't care if I had any left for myself. I leaned back in my chair, finished my drink, and muttered to no one, "Guess I finally learned what to stop fixing." I stopped fixing everything that wasn't my job, including him, but he apparently still thought I was on call. It had been about 8 months since I canceled that card, and I was in Los Angeles for a week-long senior line worker training course. I hadn't thought about my father in months, and I hadn't even stopped wondering what new act he was pulling online. The morning it happened, I was walking out of the hotel lobby, ID badge around my neck, scrolling through my schedule, when I heard it. "Michael." That voice could cut glass. I halted, turned, and there he was, my father, standing across the street in khakis and an ironed shirt, clutching a folder, as if he was preparing to submit a complaint. I didn't move, and he smiled as if nothing had happened, as if he hadn't spent the last 2 years trying to ruin my reputation. "Can we talk?" he yelled out, crossing the street. "Let's chat like men." I should have moved away, but I didn't. Whether it was curiosity or closure, I stood there as he paused a few feet in front of me, adjusting his spectacles as if he were preparing to give a TED talk on parenting. "You look good," he replied. "I noticed your name mentioned as a participant in this tournament. I didn't expect to see you here." I didn't respond, just waited. He sighed dramatically. "I'm not sure why you've made me the villain in your novel. It was just a joke, Michael. You took things too seriously. You've always been overly serious." There it was. The identical script, tone, and blame shift. I nearly grinned at how predictable it was. "You followed me down to tell me I can't handle a joke?" I said. He scowled as if he didn't expect me to be so calm. "I tracked you down to make peace. You've humiliated me and insulted my family, and you behave as if I deserve it." "I don't act like it," I replied. "You did." He shook his head and moved closer. "You've changed, son. You used to be respectful. Now you speak to me as if I were a stranger." "You are," I replied plainly. "And quit calling me son. You forfeited the right to make me your punchline." That got to him, and his face twitched with the same mix of confusion and fury he used to feel when someone disagreed with him. He opened his folder and brought out some printed screenshots, which I assumed were social media comments or texts. "This isn't who you are," he replied, shaking the page slightly. "You're more than this bitterness. I know you miss me." I laughed softly. "You know what's funny? You've been mistaken about me my entire life. Might as well include that one on the list." He scowled. "I miss my son," he murmured. "The one who used to respect me." I sipped my coffee. "You don't miss me. You lack control. And I owe you nothing." He looked at me for a moment, calculating his next move, before stepping back, tripping on his own heel, and throwing his arms wide. "Don't hit me," he said loudly. "Wait, too loud. Please stop." I froze. People on the sidewalk turned right away. A couple strolling their dogs came to a halt. Even a man dragging baggage peered over. Someone across the street began filming. "What the hell are you talking about?" I responded, taking one step back and raising my hands. He stumbled again, faking it, holding his shoulder. "He is attacking me. Please stop." A woman near the curb gasped, "Sir, you need to calm down." Someone else yelled, "Hi guy. What is wrong with you? He is an old man." My stomach fell, not out of fear, but out of disgust. The man had rehearsed this, and when the folder hit the sidewalk, papers scattered like a movie scene. He was breathing heavily, and performing like it was Broadway. "Dad," I responded slowly and quietly. "You're embarrassing yourself." He shook his head dramatically, yet loud enough for the audience. "You've always had a temper. Always." I stiffened my chest as I heard someone nearby exclaim, "I got it on video." Not because I was guilty, but because I knew how easily he could twist this. Then, with perfect timing, a man emerged from a bakery across the street, apron still on and white flour all over his hands. "Hey," he exclaimed. "He didn't touch him." Everyone turned. "I watched the whole thing," the baker said, hurrying over. "That old man is faking it. The younger one hasn't touched him. He's been talking calmly the entire time." My father halted in the middle of his performance, still slightly bent, as if he couldn't decide whether to keep performing or stop. The baker approached, pointing directly at him. "You should be embarrassed attempting to pull that in public. Cameras are everywhere, buddy. You just made a fool of yourself." Several people whispered, and one woman who had been shooting lowered her phone. My father's face turned pale, and the performance fell apart entirely. He fixed his shirt, murmured something about being misunderstood, and then looked at me. I addressed his gaze. "You just proved why I left." I turned and walked off toward the corner. The crowd parted silently, and I didn't look back. I could feel his gaze burning into the back of my head, but I didn't care. By the end of the block, the tension had drained out of me. My hands were steady, my heartbeat was normal, and I wasn't even angry. I was just done. I had had enough of the lies, theatrics, and incessant manipulation, and when I returned to the hotel, the front desk clerk gave me a concerned look. "Is everything okay out there?" I nodded. "Yeah," I answered. "Just someone who doesn't know when to quit." I went up to my room, placed my badge on the table, and looked out the window at the city lights. A year later, that's precisely what he was. For months there were no calls, stunts or performances, just silence. The type he always claimed he wanted but never knew how to live with. Cars drove silently and distantly beneath him. That was the last time I saw him. I was living outside of Sedona by then. After that training in Los Angeles, I was promoted to lead a small crew for contract jobs. My days were simple: work, gym, and occasionally assisting a neighbor in repairing a broken fence or light fixture. Most days ended with me grilling dinner on the back porch, watching the sunset paint the desert orange. I didn't think much about my father anymore. He was a chapter I'd closed until he tried to write himself back in. It began with a text from an unknown number, in the same tone I'd heard anywhere. "Michael, it's your father. I'd want to talk." Family is family. Life's too short to carry grudges. I glanced at it, shaking my head. There was no apology, no accountability, just a rehashed slogan. I didn't respond. 2 days later, another one arrived. "You'll regret pushing your family away one day." I didn't even block the number. I just muted it and let him shout into the blank. Then came the GoFundMe, which Rachel texted me with no comment, just the link, and the title. "Helping a father recover from estrangement and health issues." The description was worse. "I'm a retired man dealing with heart difficulties and emotional turmoil after losing communication with my only son. I'm fighting to keep my home and restore my life." He didn't mention the phony heart attack, the smear campaign, or that I'd given him more chances to change than he ever deserved. The target was $8,000. After 4 weeks, it had $110. The comments were also quiet, with one from a cousin wishing prayers. Rachel called one afternoon, and I picked up half anticipating more turmoil. Anything was a message from Old Accountant 77 who said, "Stay strong." Lily didn't share anything, which shocked me. "She's humiliated," Rachel explained. The entire stunt made her appear ridiculous. People posed queries that she couldn't answer. "Good," I told her. "Maybe she'll finally stop trying to defend the indefensible." There was a silence. Rachel sighed quietly. "He still talks about you, you know. Says you'll come around eventually." I said, "Doesn't make it true." I thanked her for informing me, then returned to work. I didn't think about it again. It was just another of his performances, another way to get attention after the applause had stopped. Weeks passed, the fundraiser vanished, as did his new phone number. Lily stopped posting about family dinners and forgiveness. Rachel kept in touch on occasion, mostly with weather updates and photos of her garden. There was no drama. My mother came to visit one weekend. We made breakfast together, she cooked, I drank coffee, and she glanced around my house, admiring the clean space, repaired shelves, and peaceful routine. "You seem settled," she replied, smiling. "I am," I informed her. She nodded. "He's still attempting to entice folks back in. Do not take the bait." "I won't," I replied. "He may say whatever he wants." I'm finished listening. That evening, after she left, I sat on the porch again, watching lightning flash over the hills. The air smelled like rain and dust, and for the first time in years, I realized I wasn't angry at him, the past or anything. I hadn't spoken to him in over a year, and for once, that silence wasn't heavy, but rather peaceful and complete. He'd spent his entire life trying to prove that he was the smartest man in the room, that he always had the upper hand in the spotlight. He assumed I'd always come crawling back, but I'm not that kid anymore. I have peace, and he has stillness.